Good evening, and welcome to Baldacci on Business. I'm Bob Baldacci, and this is our fourth show that we're doing in conjunction with community television. And tonight we're going to focus on the resources that are available for businesses. And we've got a great group that we put together tonight. We only have a half hour. We've got a lot of information to put on the table. But again, for those of you who are watching for the first time, please refer to ctn.org, the website, because on the website you can get access to our first three shows. The first one dealt with putting together business plans and why that's important. We also had the second show dealt with corporate and legal and tax issues in forming a company. And the third show dealt with raising money for your business. Tonight we're talking about the resources that are out there, but primarily in the public sector, that are available to help businesses. And for those of you who have heard of SBA and USDA and EDA and this alphabet soup of programs, hopefully after tonight you'll get a little better feeling for really what is out there for resources and who you can call for help. So tonight, I'm very pleased to have on my right Greg Mitchell, who is the Economic Development Director for the City of Portland. Greg, thank you for being here tonight. And Greg's going to give a perspective on, he's the man on the ground here in this community, for those of you who are watching, and the person that you should call, because he has a lot of programs and a lot of resources available to help you. On my immediate left is Hugh Stevens, who is a good friend of mine, and Hugh is the director of the Knowledge Transfer Alliance at the University of Maine. And they've got a great program, terrific resources that are available to help small businesses. And finally, John Block, who is a partner, a tax attorney at Pierce Atwood. I've known John and worked with John for a long time. And there's probably nobody in the state of Maine that understands tax incentives and the resources that the state has better than John Block. So I think we've got a great group, and thank you all for being here tonight. So before we get too much immersed in the resources, I'd like you to tell the audience a little bit about yourself, so they get a feeling for who you are. And why don't we start with John first? John, give us a little bit of your background, and then Hugh, and then Greg.
Sure. I came to Maine in 1989 when I went to University of Maine School of Law.
Yep.
And I've been at Pierce Atwood for almost 20 years, since 1992. My practice is, I'm a tax attorney, but I'm very specialized in state and local tax. So I focus on Maine taxes, municipal taxes, and economic development incentives that go along with that.
That's right.
Do a lot of work at the legislature trying to design these kinds of programs, and then I help companies and small businesses, medium-sized businesses, large businesses apply for them, take advantage of them, maximize them, and make sure they comply with the various requirements.
And John's been a terrific resource, and I know when my brother John was governor, relied a lot on John and his partner Jim Good at Pierce Atwood to help with a number of programs that he initiated in the economic development arena. Hugh?
I came to Maine, actually I've come to Maine several times, but the most recent visit and now staying is 4 years ago. I work for the university. I'm a director of the Knowledge Transfer Alliance. We're an EDA-funded program that assists, well, to simply put, we take the university out into the field to assist businesses structurally, corporately, essentially with their internal and external decision-making. My role is, as a university staffer, is also, I come with my own background in the private sector as a former business owner, as also a former executive vice president of a substantive size, not-for-profit, if you will. And we use my expertise and the folks that work with me at the university to help businesses, again, better make decisions. We're not economic developers in the traditional sense. We are economic developers from an internal business sense.
So, and Hugh brings a lot of experience to the table for tonight's discussion. And Greg? I've known you when you were in Lewiston, and Greg is also the president of the Economic Development Council of Maine. But tell us a little bit about yourself, Greg.
I'm a native Mainer, born and raised here in Maine, graduated from high school back in the late 70s. Cheverus High School.
Cheverus, okay.
So
you're a Portland boy.
I know Portland from my youth,
yeah,
from where it was before, and can compare that, contrast it with where it is today. I did leave the state a long time to further my education with business and economic degrees in Vermont and South Florida, of all places, but came home to raise my family. Started a family outside of Maine and wanted to very much be here in Maine, and moved them back in the early 1990s, in the depth of a recession, actually. So it was a tough time to make the transition, but haven't looked back. 26 years of service over that time horizon, 20 of which is in Maine, and have worked in basically every kind of economic development delivery system, local, regional, nonprofit economic development agencies, and private consulting. So I've got experience statewide in terms of work, both working directly and representing municipal interests, or when I was a consultant representing private sector parties in economic development, incentives, real estate transactions. So happy to be here. My present employment is Portland, so happy to discuss our programs and services.
We look forward to that, and our audience is primarily Portland as well, so this should be of serious interest to them. And I've had the opportunity to work with these individuals, and I can tell you that they are terrific to work with. They have the passion, the dedication, and the drive that makes a real difference in putting projects together and making things happen. So, and I mean that sincerely for all of you. So John, why don't we start, and if you could talk a little bit about an overview of Maine's incentives and how we stack up, and what resources are available out there that I think would be of real interest to somebody starting or a business, or they have a technology and they want to commercialize it. So a few minutes on that would be very helpful.
Actually, Maine stacks up extremely well compared to the rest of the country in incentives for business. Ernst & Young, which is one of the major accounting firms, just completed a study this past April where they looked for a long time at all 50 states' economic development incentive programs, tax exemptions, tax credits, and they looked at various kinds of investments like manufacturing and several others. And they compared the states and found that Maine had the #1 attractiveness for new business investment of all the states. And when you add various incentive programs together, Maine's effective tax rate for a new business was like 3%. And what we have are a large menu of very rich incentives that are available for businesses of different kinds. There isn't a one-size-fits-all. There's lots of different programs to consider, but one of the major ones is the Pine Tree Zone program, which
you were very involved with.
Yes, and as was your brother.
Yep.
But the Pine Tree Zone program gives new businesses or businesses that are already here but are expanding lots of different incentives, including up to a 10-year Maine income tax holiday, a ETIF of 80%. An ETIF is called, it's employment tax increment financing, which allows a business to actually retain the Maine income tax that they withhold from their employees. And in a Pine Tree Zone, that's 80%. That gives the business a lot of cash to help nurture the business and sustain it as it gets moving. And that lasts for 10 years.
Terrific.
And it also gives a variety of sales tax exemptions, almost everything the business is going to purchase. And the eligibility for the Pine Tree Zone program is simply creating one new job. The more jobs that a business creates, the more benefits they're going to get, especially from the ETIF. But all you have to do is create one new job, and you have to be either in manufacturing, financial services, or a list of different types of technology endeavors. So that's one program. We have things like the Better and Betty programs, which are property tax exemptions. We have tax increment financing. We have now, starting in January, a state new market tax credit. We're one of only about...
Can you talk a little bit about that? Because that's a new initiative that I think would be of interest to the audience.
Sure. There has been, since I think 2001, a federal new markets tax credit. The idea of a new markets tax credit is to target investment, to provide an incentive for investment in low-income communities, certain census tracts that are seriously underperforming. And so this federal program has been around for about a decade and has been very successful. There have been some new market tax credit projects in Portland. As a matter of fact,
Public Market.
the Portland Public Market is
Baxter
one.
Library
Baxter Library.
is a second one.
Yeah.
Others will come to mind.
Yeah.
Drawing a blank, but almost the entire Portland Peninsula qualifies from an eligibility perspective.
That's important, again, for the audience to understand that it's very much driven by the census tract of which Portland qualifies for.
Right. So the federal credit can provide financing for up to 39% of a project. Now Maine has enacted its own new market tax credit of up to 39%. That can be actually combined with the federal credit.
So you're talking 72% of the cost of a
78%, I think. My math isn't great, but
no, mine isn't either.
Close to 80%. And Maine's credit goes into effect in January, and we'll be just one of 8 states that has that. And there are a number of entities right now that are gearing up to compete to provide these credits to businesses. So that's going to be a very powerful program. And then we have all kinds of other tax credits, high-tech credits, research and development credits,
seed capital
credits for smaller businesses.
Yeah.
We have such a menu of things that when you add them all up, we're very attractive for new and expanding businesses.
That's terrific, John. We'll go back and revisit some of those in a few minutes. Hugh Stevens, Knowledge Transfer Alliance. Why should our audience be interested in the University of Maine and the Knowledge Transfer Alliance?
As a program, it's simple. Again, I'll repeat myself, but simply put, we take the expertise of the university out into the field, and usually that translates into leadership expertise, commercialization expertise. It could be things like financial. We have accountants that work for me. We have academics that have private sector background expertise, both from a C-suite, we'll just call it C-suite expertise, that can assist a business, both small, medium, and large. But the idea is that we thought, as a land-grant university, there was a responsibility to assist businesses on a little more intimate engagement than just what was being offered by some of the programs that already exist and that I already work with, for example, cooperative extension. But again, cooperative extension has resources that are specifically focused to certain business needs, but we wanted to be a little more engaged on a decision-making basis. And so we teamed with a group of businesses from Millinocket that expressed some frustrations with dealing with the university, and we came up with this program that essentially will do marketing research, does production efficiencies, manufacturing efficiencies. We work with the School of Engineering. We work with the Advanced Manufacturing Center on specific issues like, ergonomics and how you actually stand or sit and make your product. We work with a company up in Passadumkeag that makes fly fish nets, and the Advanced Manufacturing Center came in and actually worked with them what their motions were while they were making these nets. And they're one of our big success stories, notwithstanding our
golf ball, the lobster golf ball.
Yes, exactly. But the Wallace brothers, who make the fish nets, went from 2,500 fish nets a year to 10,000. since we began with them. And a lot of their own initiative on this.
Right.
But the idea is that we worked with them on marketing, we worked with them on production, we worked with them on accounting, we worked with them on actual logistics, how they deliver their product to their clients and to their own markets, and we partner with folks like John. We partner with folks like Greg up in our region, to pick up areas of business engagement that might not be picked up by traditional economic development or traditional, incentivized programs, but. Needless to say, we work quite well together, again, to serve the needs of not just small business, but any business, and serve the need that as the business defines it, not as the university defines it. I want to make that kind of clear, because in the past, there was some criticism about how those issues are defined. The business should have a little say in how we engage with them, and I think that's kind of important. And again, that's in a nutshell. Our EDA-funded Economic Development Administration, which is part of the Department of Commerce, was kind enough to give us a grant to help provide these services at no cost.
To the business.
To the business, that's correct.
And I found it to be a great resource for a number of businesses, particularly down here. And a number of times when I've worked with a business, Hugh Stevens would be the first call I would make. To come in and meet with the business, even though you're an R&O and represent the University of Maine. The University of Maine is the university for the entire state.
Correct.
So Hugh Stevens, upon a moment's notice, would make himself available, and was terrific in dealing with the businesses and provide a terrific resource. One
thing that we try to achieve is we don't want to compete with our consulting brethren. I mean, when it comes to legal issues, the University of Maine is not going to chime in on legal issues. That's John's bailiwick.
Right.
Or that's in up north in Peabody we do some work with. But obviously it's not something that we think that we should be providing advisory on, because there are folks that, so our program helps provide the resources. We pay for our relationships with law firms like Eaton Peabody and Pierce Atwood, and we also provide resources to pay for time that may be extracted from consultants like yourself, and folks like Greg. I mean, we have to be able to offset those costs if we're asking somebody to come out into the field. But our biggest issue is to provide the resource to the business, again, as the business defines it, but at an early stage, no cost.
Right. Thank you. That was helpful. And Greg's the man on the ground. He's the guy at City Hall who is the point person on economic development. And I look through your annual report and the activities and the resources that the city has available, which I think is terrific. I really do. And I think it's well worth spending a little bit of time, Greg, if you can kind of outline the resources that the city has for the entrepreneurs that are sitting and watching the show tonight.
Bob, first and foremost, we pride ourselves on being a single point of access to help businesses connect to all available services that they need, whether they're state business incentive programs, state commercial financing programs, state level workforce training programs. There's funding available to support job creation, provided certain criteria is met on the type of jobs that are created. We also have good knowledge of federal programs available through the Small Business Administration and rural development. In addition to understanding the state and the federal framework for both incentives and business assistance programs, we have a number of local programs.
Talk a little bit about those, Greg.
Those local programs start with us making sure that new businesses get connected to sites and facilities, what we call site search assistance. Again, our services are offered at no cost, but we connect businesses, if they're not knowledgeable about Portland, to available space, or can connect them to real estate opportunities, both for purchase or lease. We do that with a network of brokers, with electronic database, understanding sites and facilities. So we want to make sure that they find a home, and they're comfortable here, and their needs can be met on the ground. Second, we are a source for commercial financing. We have assets of around $3 million. for revolving lines of credit.
And what's your typical borrower and how much?
Yeah, we cover everything from small business startup lending, where we can loan up to $50,000, and we could loan up to 100% of the transaction if need be. And that's for startups, small business growth and development. We can loan up to $200,000 through some of our programs, and we have a number of programs for small and mid-sized businesses. We can leverage one program against the other if we need to, and come in at upwards of $400,000 on an individual transaction. Everything across the board, from retail businesses that could be done in our old port. Gorgeous Gelato is a loan client of ours. That was a new business to not just Portland, but a new business. They came from international.
In Italy.
Yeah, they focused.
Great gelato.
Well, they
can
focused.
vouch for that.
They focused on Portland, fell in love with Portland, and they brought their skills. We're highly trained in making gelato, so we were pleased to be a part of that. But we also assist with, biotech manufacturing firms with their growth and expansion, but on a leverage basis. We're gap financing source. We have a number of clients. The programs have been very successful. The commercial lending operation is done through a loan committee, separate from our counsel, so everything is handled confidentially and expeditiously from a timing perspective. We also connect businesses to available business counseling services that you can find through the Small Business Development Center and from SCORE, as well as Coastal Enterprise. All three of those organizations are represented here in Portland. We know the people delivering those services. We pride ourselves on making a solid match to get businesses through the door. You talked about business plans, if that was needed on the front end. We do more than referral. I think we like to pride ourselves on creating the match. We will, for businesses that need help with deal structuring, we will sit down with them to make sure that all available sources can be accessed and combined to support some of the real estate transactions that have occurred. John talked about the New Markets Tax Credit Program. We've had real estate projects to support our existing businesses and support growth and expansion that have leveraged New Markets Tax Credits, state and federal historic tax credits, rural development financing, combined with municipal tax increment financing assistance with traditional debt. So we pride ourselves on closing gaps to make projects happen, and there's a lot of, the Baxter Library project is a great success story with a reuse of a historic building, and we were able to retain and support the growth of VIA, a marketing agency.
Great company, great project. Pierce Atwood is another great example of a
Pierce Atwood was another project that we had worked hard on, keeping them in Portland, moving them to the waterfront.
Just
an
the results of
iconic waterfront structure that's been brought back to life.
It's fantastic.
Self-storage facility into a modern Class A office building. But we'll also be a point of contact for all the traditional development regulatory services that local governments provide, such as building permits, business licensing, and make sure that process goes smoothly.
And I know from working with you, Greg, that when Greg gets involved in a project, he's there from start to finish. And I know it can be a little bit intimidating for the listening audience to get a handle on all of these various programs, federal, state, and local. But I think with the resources that we've introduced tonight, I think hopefully you'll have a better sense to pick up the phone, call Greg, call Hugh if you're looking for some help from the university, and John, although these services are available at no cost, Pierce Atwood does have a Catalyst program. You want to take just a minute, John? We've only got a few minutes left in the program, believe it or not. It's gone by like that.
Oh, sure.
I know.
Yeah, we have a program that's, I think, unique among law firms, possibly in the country, but it's called a Catalyst program. And we will accept clients into that program that have emerging businesses, emerging technologies that have no cash flow because they're in such a startup and they may be years and years away from having any revenue. But we will give that, we'll accept them into the program and give that business all the legal support that they need until they get to the point where they can actually pay for legal services. And that's been a very successful program.
I know, and I've taken a number of clients through the program, and it's been terrific. As we begin to wrap up, just a brief statement from each of you. What advice would you give the entrepreneur from your perspective? You've all been in business, you've dealt with businesses, just looking to take the first step. Just quickly, Greg?
Quickly, leaves no stone unturned. John has highlighted a number of programs out there. Combined, they're very powerful. So leave no stone unturned. So check with your local economic development directors. There's regional economic development agencies in the state of Maine, and they're very helpful as well. Local law firms that have the technical expertise that John possesses. And obviously the university system, so leave no stone unturned. Because there's a lot of help out there, and there's a lot of people with a skill set that can help further business ventures.
Yeah, John?
I agree with all of that. That's pretty much what I was going to say, but excuse me, I'm fighting a cold. But I would also say
we have just 1 minute left.
Do that before you actually start, because some of these programs you have to apply for before the business is even going.
Excellent point.
There is that timeline that you got to deal with.
Point.
And Hugh has run a business successfully, and what advice?
There's no wrong portal. I mean, if you're going to contact Greg sooner or later, there may be reason to contact me. There may be reason to contact you.
The websites are all available on the program. Please feel free to call any of these gentlemen for help. We appreciate your attention tonight.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob.
This was terrific. Next month we're going to talk about financing your business, more from the debt side, and but this has been fun, and we really appreciate we really appreciate your time. So again, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So
Thank you.
that's it. And.